What if someone has a comparative advantage in all lines of production, in all areas with respect to another person? Would an exchange between the two be worthwhile or not? You say no. No. I'm better than you at hunting, at tanning skins, at everything. What now? Well, so long. You go your way, and since I'm better than you at everything, I'll go mine. Are we doing the right thing by going our separate ways? Or would it still be in our best interest to make an exchange? It would still be in our best interest to make an exchange. This is known as Ricardo's law of association. Ricardo was an economist, and he stumbled upon this law while developing that of comparative advantage in international trade. We'll talk more about that in the future. Let me give you an example. Imagine a surgeon who is extremely skilled at performing operations, is also a very good anesthesiologist, and on top of that is the best nurse around. If he tries to do everything, it will be at the expense of performing operations, which is where he has the greatest relative comparative advantage. So, even though the nurse may not be as skilled as he is, it may be worth the surgeon's while to say, listen, as a nurse you rate a 6, not a 9 like I do. Nevertheless, even though you're a little slower, it will help me if you take responsibility for nursing and you for anesthesiology. That way, I can devote myself entirely to performing operations. Though I could surely be a better anesthesiologist than you, and a better nurse than you, it will be at the expense of doing something at which I have an even greater relative advantage. Therefore, cooperation between the most gifted at everything and the least gifted is still worthwhile to everyone, as long as each person specializes in the area in which he or she has the greatest comparative advantage, in relative terms. According to Hayek, we can be few and savage, or many and civilized. As an illustration, consider the neutron atomic bomb and the movie Mad Max. The neutron atomic bomb is a curious atomic bomb. When it explodes, it leaves all tangible assets intact. It kills only organic matter. Imagine a few neutron bombs fall, and of the 6 billion people on the face of the Earth, all but 6 million are wiped out. However, all buildings, real estate, capital goods, libraries, books, recipes, formulas and computer programs remain intact. I ask you, would those 6 million survivors live in luxury? That's the philosophy of Malthus. There is enormous wealth, and since only 6 million people have to share it, they'd all be cruising around on enormous yachts, etc. Or would they be poor? What do you think? They'd be destitute. Because a tiny fraction of the population would not be able to sustain the huge volume of practical knowledge that makes civilization possible. A woman about to give birth would be in the same situation as a primitive woman 5,000 years ago. She would have to go off by herself and give birth under a tree. Indeed, at least she would know how to bear a child au naturel, cut the umbilical cord and chew on a herb to avoid infection, etc. But it's a pitiful situation. These days they give the woman an epidural, and everything is closely monitored. Beep, beep, beep. There's an army of creative entrepreneurs behind that. If there are not enough human beings to sustain the enormous volume of information that makes civilization possible, the world retracts. We would go back to the cave period, which is precisely what Mad Max depicts. In Mad Max there has been a sort of cataclysm, and the scarcest resource is energy, gasoline. The characters are fighting in cars out in the desert, and they are killing each other for a barrel of gasoline. The vehicles are rather bizarre, and there are good guys and bad guys. Mel Gibson is one of the good guys. There is a huge volume of capital, but people are destitute, because they live in tiny tribes which compete for whatever meager resources they can come by. Since the collapse of the population has caused the entire chain of human interactions to disappear. We can be few and savage, or many and civilized. The necessary condition for the advancement of mankind and increasing wealth, and what makes these things possible, is growth in the population. As I explained the other day in Salamanca, it is also essential to dynamic efficiency, but we will discuss that later. Therefore, all institutions which contribute to population growth drive the advancement of civilization. Besides, the point I'm making is obvious. Let's see. What is the history of mankind with respect to economic development? What did the Industrial Revolution make possible? An increase in the population. Why are there 7 billion of us now when there were only a fraction of that number before the Industrial Revolution? If population growth were a detriment to economic development, there would be a lot fewer of us now, but instead we are more numerous. And what is the process of migration to the cities? Cities like magnets are attracting more and more migrants. Cities are increasingly populated and increasingly wealthy. More people and more wealth. More people and more wealth. It's obvious because the capacity for the horizontal and vertical division of knowledge increases exponentially. As society becomes more developed, we become more ignorant. Relatively speaking, each person knows less of the entire body of information that benefits us. I am benefiting from a vast volume of information, and I know nothing. I know a few things about economics, but that's about it, compared to what I'd know if I lived in the jungle. Let's see. Another movie. What happens to Crocodile Dundee when they take him from the Australian outback and put him into the middle of Manhattan? That's what the movie is about. Well, the guy's amazed. He knows how to hunt a python, cut open the python, eat the python. He roasts a python in the middle of Fifth Avenue. Everybody thinks the guy is nuts, etc. And vice versa. What would happen if they took a New Yorker from Wall Street and put him into the Australian outback? He would last a fraction of a second. A poisonous snake would bite him. He would drink contaminated water. Do you see what I'm saying?